Money's a byproduct. Money's a side effect. Money comes from cleaning oneself and becoming an of course to all that circulates, including this sort of fake digital thing that we have, and sometimes we cut a tree and put some green stuff on it and say, oh, that's valuable, right? I'm a yes to it all. Yes, God, do your thing, use me. Right? It's less about the trying to get it, and it's more about becoming such an of course with it that it just wants to flow through you.
I love it so much. And as I was reading your book and you were talking about like being a conduit sort of for the power, for the electricity to flow through you, I felt that very deeply.
What if your money struggles have nothing to do with how hard you work and everything to do with your nervous system? If you've ever felt stuck in scarcity, financial anxiety, or unhealthy money patterns, you're not alone. Financial trauma is real, and it's not just about mindset. It's about survival responses wired into the body. Maybe you avoid looking at your bank account. Maybe no matter how much money you make, it never feels like enough. Or maybe you keep sabotaging financial opportunities without even realizing why.
Today, we're breaking down how financial trauma gets stored in the nervous system, how it fuels stress, shame, and self-sabotage, and most importantly, how you can break free. We're diving into the hidden connection between trauma, money, and the nervous system, breaking down the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses in financial behaviors, and uncovering how healing your nervous system can help you create abundance, not just financially, but in relationships, health, inner peace. This one gets personal. We get into our own financial beliefs and patterns. And today we're joined by Preston Smiles, transformational coach and author of Spiritual Millionaire, who has an incredible story and experience working with thousands of people to help them overcome shame, trauma, and unworthiness to access abundance, and not just money, but real wealth. Welcome to Trauma Rewired, the podcast that teaches you about your nervous system, how trauma lives in the body, and what you can do to heal. I'm your co-host, Elizabeth Kristoff, founder of brainbase.com, an online community where we use applied neurology, somatics, and stress processing for nervous system resilience and health. And I'm also the founder of the Neurosomatic Intelligence Coaching Certification, an ICF accredited course for coaches, therapists, healers, practitioners to bring the nervous system into all the modalities of work you do.
And I'm your co-host, Jennifer Wallace. I'm a neurosomatic psychedelic preparation and integration guide, and I bring your nervous system and its healing into your peak somatic experiences. And by doing so, we create safer spaces for your body to receive the messages and then embody the medicine. I'm also one of the educators at the NSI Coaching Certification, and today we are so honored to be welcoming Preston Smiles to Trauma Rewired. Preston, I'm thrilled to dive into this conversation of financial trauma and freedom with you. These are some of the deepest patterns that me and Elizabeth have been chipping away at. And when Elizabeth messaged me from Miami saying that she had met you, it was like all the stars aligned for you to join us in this conversation. I know that you had a challenging childhood. I spent some time listening to the Preston Smiles show. You were raised poor, as you say, in Compton, California, and did not have the patterning for wealth and success, not only in a financial, but like Elizabeth said, relationally. And so in that, you have dedicated your life's work to overcoming the shame and trauma that keeps people stuck in scarcity with a mix of somatics and strategy. And so it's been fun to learn from you. I'm excited for what today brings, but would you please start with sharing some of your story, particularly what's relevant for us to know as we dive into financial trauma and freedom with you today?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I just want to tip my hat, especially for the listeners, because I want to acknowledge something. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes for something like this to occur. And this podcast can't even exist without the work that the two of you have done separately to have the type of consciousness and the somatic body to even hold it, right? To the degree that somebody has worked through and on their stuff is the degree that they can experience life. And so I just want to acknowledge both of you for doing so and for also unconsciously helping support other women heal their sister wound, because that's a lot of things that also occur in some of my spaces where there's this idea that two powerful women can't exist in the same space. And there's so much juiciness to all of us on this conversation. And so, yes, I will go into my story. This August, I will be 45 years young, and I have lived quite an epic life. And there are so many powerful stories that I can extract from, but the one that I'll start with is, and I don't think I've ever told this story on a podcast ever. So you're about to get some new stuff. My mom, I grew up in a very stressed out home. So my mom was very stressed. My dad was struggling with his own drug addiction and demons. And I became an out of the way kid, right? Children adapt based on their parents, their caregivers. And so for me, the more out of the way and the less stressed I was, the better off. And so if I was getting, let's say, out of 100, 5% of love and care, I would manage everything and everybody so that I could maintain the 5%. And my parents were not into self-development or anything of that nature, and they were doing the best they could. But I had a moment with my mom in the kitchen, and I've never shared this before. I had a moment with my mom in the kitchen. I was probably 8 or 9. And they got divorced at 9, so I would have been 8. And she's cooking or doing something, and I mentioned out of pride that I had figured out how to get some money, and that I was gonna, buy some toy or something like that. And for some reason, it triggered her, and she was like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Yes, I am." And all I remember is her slapping me out of the chair, like across the counter. She slapped me and I fell out of the chair. And especially in Afro-amazing households, there's this idea that big boys don't cry and to man up and all that stuff. And my mom's nervous system was not built to hold tears and all that stuff. And so I just remember her sort of like over me, saying like, as long as you're in my household, I will, take care of the money stuff and X, Y, and Z. And you ever have a moment where you go, yep, I'm never sharing that again? Because that's what happened for me. And it's so interesting. Even to this day, my wife and I have, we have 3 very successful businesses that are 7 figures, and we still have separate accounts. And so we have accounts together, and then we have separate accounts. And there's this part of me that never wants anybody to be able to tell me what to do, right? This is trauma, wounding, all the stuff, right? So if I control my account, you can't tell me what to do, because she told me what to do. She hit me, right? And so inside of my young, impressionable psyche, I made up the story that bringing up money was dangerous. It's also a stressful topic. B, that when women are around, I'm on duty, because my mom did her best to beat out the parts of the masculine that hurt her. And so because my dad was a little misogynistic and cheated and was doing drugs and things of that nature, she tried to raise the perfect little boy. And so I became this chameleon where I just showed her what she wanted to see. And that sort of bled into all other subject matter. And I've been in this space for almost 20 years. 2005 is when I entered into the self-development space. And I've been on many podcasts, and one of the things someone asked me many years ago, they said, "What's the thing, right? You coach all these people. What's the thing?" They said, "Oh, it's easy. It's parents, money, and sex. And parents you can run from, sex you can hide, but money you're in conversation with every single day, sometimes like 60 times a day. And so if you have trauma around money, that's going to show up over and over and over again. And we tend to go into hypervigilance or hypo. And I when it came to money, sort of just checked out for most of my career and just said, it'll happen. I'll focus on the stuff that feels good. And I had a really big shift, and I'm going to let you guys jump in here in a minute. I had a really big shift in 2012 going into 2013 because I was coming home from somewhere and I stopped to get gas, and I knew I only had $8 in my account. And I'm this 33-year-old man with $8 in his account. And I stopped at an ExxonMobil and I put $4 in my beat up Prius. And I kind of had one of those like, God, if you're out there, what the hell am I missing here? Because I'm a really good dude. I'm helping people. I'm leaning in. I'm like really showing up, and yet I'm broke as a joke. And I got an internal hit. Call your mom and ask for help. And I did. And she said, oh yeah, come on home. And the irony of this, and I'm going to end this story. My mom let me move back in. And up until that point, I had only been making about $36,000 a year. And I moved in with my mom, and I invested all the money I was using on the apartment and bills and all that stuff into coaches, therapists, workshops, seminars. I did everything you possibly could to soak up, right? I knew somebody had it figured out, and I didn't have it figured out. And that year, I went from 36,000 to 150,000. And then I jumped from 150 to 300,000, then 300,000 to 600,000, then 600,000 to 1.2 million. And I just literally took off. And I figured out these principles and how in my opinion, how the laws of the universe work in some ways. And I just started using them, and it worked, and it's continued to work. So there's a lot more to my childhood, including being in special needs classes and feeling like the dumb person in the room and an imposter. But I'll stop there.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. I feel really honored to have a unique story here and can relate so much to that. I've talked on here many times about when I was growing up, it was just my mom and I. She raised me as a single mom. We had a lot of financial hardship. She also had a lot of stress, and learning that same patterning of like, when I am stressed out, when I have big emotions, when I have big needs, it's too much for her, right? And at that very subconscious level, feeling her stress level escalate and her dissociation in that moment. And then her nervous system is like gone from mine, and learning that I have to repress some of that in order to maintain that connection. And how those patterns, like you talked about, they get so woven in to all facets of our life, and how we are anywhere is how we show up everywhere. And so it comes through in our financial patterns. And to this day, I'm also the same way with my partner. We have our separate accounts, and we just after we bought a house together, we live together, but we just opened up like a joint checking. So it's a work in progress.
Love it.
Yeah, it's an unfolding for sure. Before we dive too deep, I'd like to just kind of give people a higher level idea of what financial trauma might look like, because I think it's not always as straightforward as it seems. I think it can be growing up in a home where there's a lot of scarcity, unpredictability around resources. Maybe you move a lot as a kid. Maybe there's cycles of debt that you see your parents going through, or the financial stress. I think it can also come from emotional neglect on the flip side of that, when our parents only use money and things as their only avenue of expressing love and care for a child. So I think there's all these different ways that we can get a skewed relationship to money through our different experiences of trauma. And I just wondered, how would you define financial trauma for people who are just starting to kind of wrap their minds around that?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to hit that, but I'm just going to step even further back from it. So one of the things that I've been teaching for years is that there's 4 aspects of what it means to be a human being. We are biological beings, right? That's pretty clear. We got physical bodies. Those bodies do stuff. We are linguistic beings, meaning we build worlds with our language, right? Without the language of door and doorknob, getting out of a room would be very challenging. But with the language, I can do things and experience life different. We are quantum beings, which is a whole nother can of worms. And then the fourth one, which is the one I want to stop on, is we are social and historical beings. Meaning, all of us were born into beliefs and interpretations. And so one of the biggest things I have my clients do is make a list of all of the beliefs and interpretations that you were born into around money, around women and money, men and money, how it should be spent, how it shouldn't be spent, because all of those things will support in understanding how we take shape in the world. And so my shape was playing not to lose. If I cover all bases and I, make sure everybody's good, then I will be safe enough to be myself. But even then, I only did it outside. So addressing the things someone heard. Now I'm just going straight to the question of trauma and money. What did you hear around money? Right? Many people grew up in sort of Christian households, if you may, that spoke to money as the root of all evil. Right? They took that Bible verse and they sort of shifted it around and made it about greed. And so that's something you heard often, which can instantly create trauma if you hear something enough, because it becomes an imprint in your consciousness. Again, because our nervous systems are being formed between 0 and 7 years old, and then we add on more trauma, more shame, more guilt, and occurrences. What you felt around money, right? That's a whole nother can of worms. What do I feel? Like when it was time to pay rent or the mortgage, what was the feelings? What was the tone in the room? Because we're energy beings, right? We can feel when something feels good, and we can feel when something feels constricted and tight or aggressive, right? What were the feelings? Then the third one would be, what big events occurred that changed the trajectory of my life, right? So, and I'd love, if you feel open, for both of you to answer this question, and I'll definitely answer it. For me, my mom's an accountant. And so my dad took up the role as the fuck up or the screw up. And my mom took on the role of the responsible one. And so for me, it's like, there's no space to mess things up. And what my mom would do is she would tell us, like, hey, it's tight, right? If anything goes wrong, we're gonna have a problem. And so she said that enough to where it stuck in my consciousness. And when she would say, hey, do you want $5 for lunch? I would say, no, just give me $2.50. And I would always take less, right? Well, that was a major event for me in some ways, because it was perpetual. There's so many times it happened that it became one thing for me, which is, if anything goes wrong, if I lose my job, if you break your leg, if you need braces, if something goes wrong with you, if there's an unexpected bill, we are going to have a problem. So I became the type of kid where I have no problems. So what would that be for you two, just out of curiosity? Like a big money event or something that like landed in your consciousness.
Preston, what you shared was so relatable for me. My mom was a bookkeeper and my dad went from blue collar to white collar. He's an iron worker. He was our provider. And my mom, we've always called her our manager. She is the one who has always controlled and dictated the finances. And if I were going to be a celebrity, my mom would be my manager. Like, she has always been the manager. Mm-hmm. But she's got a major control issues because she has such driving perfectionism. And so her financial trauma goes right into the perfectionism. And so I am someone who is also used to I will take less. It happens, I notice it in my scarcity of grocery shopping. Instead of going to the grocery store and buying a couple $100s of whatever I need, I will go back and forth to HEB. Let me just get what I need. Let me just get what I need for these couple days, what I need. And it's like, it's so much outward energy. And for my mom, one of the phrases that she always used to say was robbing Peter to pay Paul.
That.
And I'm doing that. I'm always do, and I'm making calculations from backwards. Okay, I have this. What can I do from here? And if I do this, then I can't do this. If I do this, then I can't do this. And I'm always negotiating what I can and cannot do. And a lot of times I can do both of the things or all of the things. And so the energy of strategizing and controlling the money is like really something that I work with. And I do have more to share around the financial trauma, but I'm going to let Elizabeth jump in here to answer this question.
That's really big too. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you both. Those are really good examples. I was thinking as you were talking, with my mom, she always was very, her saying was like, money is just a tool to get us things. We don't stress about it. But her actions were really different, right? Because my mom was a real deal workaholic. And I don't even think it had so much to do with the money as, trauma and stories from her past of worthiness and needing to earn. She would pass up raises. Like her boss would offer her a raise and she would be like, no, I don't deserve that. Give it to other people. And she would, go to work at 5 a.m., come back, take me to school, drop me off. I would get home, latchkey kid. She wouldn't get home from the office until 1 or 2 in the morning. Fall asleep on the couch, rinse and repeat. And so I really learned, I used to think of it as a very strong work ethic. I would always say, like, I may not be the funniest person in the room, the smartest person in the room, the prettiest person in the room, but you cannot outwork me. And I lived my life in that way of like, I will earn my worth to like exist, to be alive by the amount of work that I put in. And so undoing some of those patterns of like hustle and drive and even just teaching my nervous system like it's safe to relax, to rest has been huge and quite a journey, as Jennifer can attest to.
That's so good. Let me just high five and tap on this. If you grew up in the Western world, you're probably going to relate to this at some level. And that's that. And none of our parents do this on purpose. And anybody listening who's been doing this with your own children, please hear me. I'm not shaming you. I just want you to understand something. Little kids are so malleable. And early on, most of us grew up in households where if we did what mommy and daddy deemed as good, we got time, toys, love, attention. If we did what daddy and mommy deemed not good or caretaker, they would take away their time, toys, love, attention. So this is the core, to me, this is one of the core trauma wounds around money, even though it's not directly connected to it. Because we were taught unconsciously a layaway plan where we needed to work for the love, work for the toys, work for the time with our parents. Therefore, we're always on this layaway plan, right? Get good grades so you can get into college, get into college and get good grades so you can get a good job so you can find a good partner so you can have kids, and on and on and on. And none of that is, hey, I love you no matter what. Hey, I understand this school system thinks you should think like this or talk like this or walk like this, but you have a different intelligence. And so that to me is one of the biggest core traumas that most of us grew up in that we didn't even recognize was there. And it's some of the biggest work I do with our kids right now. Like our son got sent home from school yesterday and because he threatened one of the teachers, and I had to move out of my own, like, what does this mean about me and my parenting and X, Y, and Z, and go, what does this child need? All behavior is communication. What is he communicating? What does he need? What's going on? What am I missing? How can I get closer to him? and hold a boundary, not as punishment, but as a pillar that he can lean up against. And those are all the things I did not get as a child, right? And most of us didn't get that. And so to me, the core trauma is taking our parents taking their love away when we weren't good boys and good girls. Like, let me just say this. We do a workshop, and we've been doing this workshop for almost 11 years, called the Bridge Experience. And it's a trauma-based, somatic, experiential workshop where the participants are the workshop. There's no notes. You are it. And I'm going to ask you to answer this and guess. We do a particular exercise called solidarity, where we have people in a U-shaped arc, and one by one, each person goes to the front of the U, and they share something they've held guilt or shame around, and their deepest, darkest secrets, some version of that. What do you think the percentage is, men and women, of people who've experienced some type of sexual trauma?
Well,
You're talking to the
for
wrong
women,
people. We
I'll
believe it like 100% of the people. Like that's where I'm at 90 to 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, I would be
Yep.
about the same.
Yep. I mean, Costa Rica, Africa, Canada, Los Angeles, New York, Australia, New Zealand, London. We've done this everywhere. We've done it all over the world. And it's the same results every single time. About 80 to 90% of the room has been sexually abused in some form or fashion, and they hid it. They hid it out of shame. Now, why, right? We can just go, oh my God, poor these people. But to go a layer deeper and to ask ourselves, what made them hide it? And that, for me, connects back to the good girl and the good boy. Right? If my identity is I have to be a good girl to get mommy's love, I have to be a perfect Christian boy to get mommy or daddy's attention and time, then if a person molests me or rapes me or hurts me, then must be something dirty or wrong about me, and therefore I will keep that close. And then that gets, the body holds on to trauma like water holds on to a sponge. And then these people are dense and they walk into these rooms. That's why they come to us. They come into these rooms all dense and they leave free because it's been living in their body for so long. And they just needed permission to be who they are.
It's not only though like developmental sexual trauma, like women are living with sexual boundary violations
All the time.
all the time. It's not just from development. It is just like from living in this world and walking around in this place that's dangerous for the world is dangerous for bodies. It's not just women's bodies. I do really want to dive into sexual trauma, but first there's also something I want to circle back to because I really think I want to talk about emotional neglect for a minute because I think this also goes to what you were saying about like love being leveraged with money and like the time, love, money, toys thing, because if emotional neglect is one of my ACE scores. And so what I learned when I started healing my nervous system and learning about subconscious patterns, like stepping back from, what is this broader picture for how I've been patterned? I really learned that my parents provide for me, and that is how they show their love. And for many years, decades, I was so angry at those provisions. I was defiant. I was ungrateful. I couldn't understand like where is the emotional connection? Like you guys, I share a lot of similarities with your stories that you share about growing up, dissociation, like single mom. And our financial situation changed when I was about 6 years old. And so we started living a little bit differently. And I think that's when the providing patterns really got a little bit stronger. And so there's a couple things here that really involve uncoupling for me in my body. Because what I realized that was through these patterns of emotional neglect and financial providing, that there's deeply entrenched codependent patterns rooted in lack. And I had to start healing. Really the biggest, some of the biggest patternings were from perfectionism, how I was showing up and being in the expression of my truth and being able to use my voice. I started learning that I was denying love. If my parents show me love by providing for me, then I'm receiving. I have denied myself of that love so much, and now I really want to receive it. But there's energetic boundaries in that, right? Like, what is the intention? I have to try and read their intention. I have to tune into my intention, and like it's really about aligned receiving, not just receiving everything that they want to throw at me. I have to be in alignment with that. And then there's like boundaries, my boundaries, because part of my patterning is understanding that I can manipulate this situation. When I need love, I can find all these little ways that I will start to manipulate my mom so that I can live. Like, I will overspend intentionally and be like, well, I really need my supplements. I'm really into my healthy lifestyle. And I might be pushing myself a little bit beyond my means right now, but that's okay. My mom's got me. I will manipulate that. I will get my needs met in some way. And so like, or when I'm seeking love, and I have had to learn how to find that self-compassion for myself and find the love that I seek within myself and really from God. That is where I resource from. But something you brought up earlier when you told that story, that vulnerable story about your mom, was that money is dangerous. Bringing up money is dangerous. And it is. It still is. And so I hide things that I do that are sometimes really exciting, but I don't want to hear about the lack that I could potentially face. And so it's very messy, and it like all lives in my body.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's tricky.
Oh, let's go. I love this. I love people who reveal, right? Because in our space, it's easy to pretend like you're perfect, right? But you're not, and nobody is, and everybody is in there. It's like a beautiful mess, right? And one of the most beautiful things I've figured out is that Spirit, God, can only do for me what it can do through me. And so my big work isn't about making it happen. It's about making it welcome. And then I go, okay, well, what's in the way of making it welcome? What's in the way? Oh, I have to cut the cord of trading time for money, because that's something I inherited growing up in this Western world. You work hard to get a paycheck. You work hard to get it's always time for money. So I have to divorce that aspect to cut that cord. Oh, what's in the way? Well, I have a fear of not belonging. So if I get too rich, if I get too bright, then I may be further away from my friends, family, and people I love. Got to cut that cord too. And so I love what you're saying, because you're heat seeking. You're like a heat seeking missile for the things that aren't serving you anymore. And as we bring them to the light and feel them to the degree that they need to be felt, they dissipate and go away. And sometimes fully, sometimes half of them. But the name of the game is spaciousness, because, when I look out, I'm here on 4 acres, and there's 3 houses even on this property, right? It's so crazy to me because, I did not grow up like this, but I'm fucking rich, right? It's awesome, right? And I look out at these trees, and I'm like, holy shit. Each one of these trees was ordained by God. Each one of the leaves, the branches, each one, God said, do your thing, right? And every morning I come out and I look at the trees. There's hundreds of them. Each one of them is like, boom, look at me, bitch. Look at me, right? I dropped my leaves today. That's our work, because the fruit doesn't belong to the tree. The fruit belongs to the ecosystem. Our job as a tree is to shine, is to express, is to expand, is to experience God's love in only the way that we can. And this is why I get so pumped and excited about this particular subject matter, because money's a byproduct. Money's a side effect. Money comes from cleaning oneself and becoming an of course to all that circulates, including this sort of fake digital thing that we have. And sometimes we, cut a tree and then put some green stuff on it and say, oh, that's valuable, right? I'm a yes to it all. Yes, God, do your thing. Use me, right? It's less about the trying to get it, and it's more about becoming such an of course with it that it just wants to flow through you.
I love it so much. And as I was reading your book and you were talking about like being a conduit sort of for the power, for the electricity to flow through you, I felt that very deeply in my body. I think you articulate it so well in the book, and it's just a really powerful experience. And as I was reading that and thinking about the saying yes to the things that want to flow through me, I was thinking about sexual abuse. So I'm going to bring it back to that. Because as you know, the listeners on here know, incest is part of my story. And it's not an uncommon thing, like you talked about, or whether that's early childhood, sexual abuse, or the things that we experience later in life. But there are places where I feel like that particular wound imprints in the body in such a way that it can really show up in our financial health because of some of these things that you talk about, like being able to see it and feel it often. Well, if I've experienced these big experiences for a little developing body, I learned dissociation as a frequently occurring protective mechanism. And then that carries into adulthood. And I have deficits in my interoceptive system, and it's scary to feel the sensations inside. And I have a huge, very active shame response that immobilizes my body and creates inflammation. And I'm not able to express the emotions easily. It was a long process of getting there and being able to mobilize and express the emotions. So I have, well-worn pathways of dissociation, or well-worn pathways of shame and inflammation, and boundaries are such a really challenging event in my body to set. And so I think as people are working in this way of trying to be the channel to feel and express so that things can come through, I just think there's a lot of connections there between early childhood sexual abuse and the way that we get blocked from our abundance.
Yes, I agree. As you know, but I'll share with the audience, I also had a not so awesome experience as a child with a family friend's son. And I don't remember all of it because the brain does that. When you go into these spaces, it sort of chops the memories up. And so I just remember the uncomfortable feeling, him turning the lights out, locking the door, and just touching me in inappropriate ways without my permission. And for a long time, that played into the part of me that believed that I was special in my wounds. Right? I used to say, in any given room, I'd be like, oh yeah, these people are messed up, but they're not as messed up as me. Right? I almost gave myself a hierarchy of how messed up I was, and I'm special in my wounds. And what I've sort of come to work through and work with is I was gifted with him doing that, because it also, and hear me loud and clear, I'm not saying that behavior was okay. But if I can pull far enough back, right, there's something called chaos theory. That's essentially, you pull far enough back, you can see the fundamental order of everything. It looks like chaos, but there's actually order. And so if I pull far enough back and I step out of the part of me that has a personality and all the things, and I just look at it objectively, what has occurred in this lifetime? What's going on here? Oh, well, Preston, you're pretty deep, and you have such a beautiful heart, especially for people who've been hurt and harmed. There's a part of you that can reach into people's souls and help their nervous system go, oh, right? Even for the rocks, the people who hold people, you can hold the rocks. Well, that didn't just happen, bro. Right? What occurred where you can go that deep? What occurred where you can hit the bottom of something and go, still got you. I'm still here. Yeah, I fucked up too. Right? Or I felt that too. And here's what's possible. And so for me, yes, I've had to work through the part of me that did not trust men. Right? Like after that happened, I didn't play football. I didn't do anything where a man could grab me. And I stayed close to the people who I trusted, but everything I wanted was outside of those circles. And so this goes back to the abundance and specifically money, because we are social beings, right? I watch my kids. I have 4 kids. I watch those little suckers fight over the stupidest things, and then they get mad and they feel what they feel, and he took my cookie or my toy or whatever the case may be. And then 10 minutes later, they are running around the house playing. They're off back in the field with each other because they cannot beat their biology. There's a part of them that needs each other, right? And so we need proximity to level each other up. This is the point of a podcast like this. It's the point of new friendships. But if I stick to my safe circle, then there's no space and room for the growth that needs to happen based on intimacy.
Actually, I was taken and kidnapped in Turkey in 2009. And so even I had beliefs that I like, forget the weight that I had put on as a child from early boundary violations. But then it was like, oh, I can never look better than I do right now at 39, 35, so whatever. Can't even remember right now. It's just like, because I will be hurt. So I still have been doing that. But like, I really want to circle back to you saying that this early developmental trauma was a gift and has gems in it, because we really truly believe this too. And this is something that it can be really challenging for our listeners to accept. And we get comments about that. How can this have happened? And this is a gift. And I have a teacher that I work with, and she says, life doesn't give us the things that we can't handle. It gives us the things that shape us into who we are. And so it took so much time and work and energy and looking at all of these things to really realize that the sexual trauma for me was a huge gift. Gifted me with what makes me good at what I do now, not just in my work, but as a human walking around. And even the emotional neglect that I experienced, that is a gift.
Yes.
There are gifts. I mean, I am like a pattern busting ninja around here recently. And I love that. I'm finding myself more and more. And the narratives, just the volume dials are so much more turned down on the hypervigilance. And it just makes the patterns that are circulating for me a little bit more manageable. The chaos doesn't get too overwhelming. And, you know, the shame, it's like shame on shame on shame on shame, because it's like all the things. And then like financial burdens bring about shame. And like we know about like inflammation, the immobilization of the body. And I really love the way that you talk about functional freeze with money. Would you explore a little bit of that with us, like shame and functional freeze and that aspect of what can be coming in with money?
Yes. Oh man, there's so many places to go with all of this. So just to recap, and I know you all teach this, but I'm going to remind everybody just one more time that the goal is a relaxed body. The goal is a unclenched butthole. The goal is just yes and thank you. Right? That's my mantra daily, even when it's not good. Like, even when my wife and I are fighting, just yes, I hear you, God, and thank you. Right? So fight. Right? Go back to caveman, cavewoman. We're partially still animals, and that reptilian part of our brain is epic, and it has its way of protecting us, right? But know that we're safe. Going back to freeze, a lot of times people will be in a functional freeze pattern in general, and that touches their money, it touches their sex, it touches their expression across the board. And some of the big work is to awaken oneself out of these spaces by doing what I call a all needs met alarm or a joy alarm. So I have 2 different exercises that I do, and I want to just bring this to your crew because you can use this right now. The moment this podcast is over, you can start this exercise. And so I do this with my one-on-one clients, and I do it in a group. And I'll start with the joy alarm. The joy alarm is simple. I was doing a lot of mushrooms in Joshua Tree, California, many, many years ago. And I had a moment where I burst into just pure joy. And all I could see was the face of God everywhere. And on those rocks, I noted, what if you did this tomorrow when you're back home and the next day? And so drive back to LA from Joshua Tree, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and I decide that I'm going to set 5 alarms. And every time the alarm goes off, I'm going to see the face of God. And I'm going to burst into spontaneous joy to wake myself up from any functional freeze I might have in my nervous system that I don't even know about, right? Because again, it's not, we think that it's specifically money. It's not. God, the universe, all of that, it does not care, right? It is a yes button. And to the degree that you are open, available, and alive is the degree that you will experience all of those things and then some. And anything you pointed at will amplify because of how clean you are. And so I recognized I was not clean in certain areas. And so every time the alarm goes off, you burst into spontaneous joy using your voice. And you laugh and you shake. And I would do it in a coffee shop. I would do it in line at the grocery store. And a couple things happened. Number one, over like a span of a week, my baseline, let's say 10 is you are experiencing pure elation. 1 is you're depressed and you want to die, right? My baseline at that time was like a 5. I did this for 1 week. And I was like, I'm like in an 8, 9 area, just like starting the morning out, like not even trying. I am operating at a higher level of consciousness and I know it. This feels like I'm on mushrooms, but I'm not on mushrooms, right? And so that's my one invitation for stepping out of functional freeze is actually just wake yourself up on purpose.
Well, just that I love that. And it's something that how we would refer to it around here is minimum effective dose of joy, because we're always talking about finding that sweet spot. What can my nervous system have the capacity to hold, right? And
Yes.
if I'm expecting myself to be able to just move into this completely different way of being, that's maybe setting myself up for failure. So it started for me really small with like sensory stimulus that my nervous system likes, or making a vocal sound. And then these little moments of intentionally celebrating a win, when instead of just going right to the next thing, put on some music, make some sounds, roll around on the floor, relax, whatever it is.
Yes.
And that I really feel like that repetition, and you talk a lot about this in your book, like putting the reps in to repattern the nervous system, is just, it's so important. And it can completely change, like you said, like that baseline level through that repetition at the dose that we can have the capacity to positively adapt to in our
Correct.
nervous system.
Correct. That's exactly it. And there's no judgment. Like, it's wherever you are is where you are. 3 core desires all humans are always looking to check off. What do you think those 3 are? I'm going to hit it back in your court. 3 core desires. Every human always is looking for these 3 things at some level.
Love.
Okay?
I was going to say safety and connection.
Boom. Okay. Those are the top 2. The third one is in case
Money.
those don't happen. No. Because let's go back to we're in East Africa, the first humans. So the first humans, they're in a cave. You need to, if we're all 3 of us are in the cave, you need to feel like I love you, like you belong, like you're appreciated, like you matter. Otherwise, if I don't like you, love you, appreciate you, and let's say, Jennifer, it's Elizabeth and I don't like you, love you, or appreciate you, then what could happen?
I'm going to die.
Correct. Because if we cast you out of that cave, what are the likelihood of you surviving?
Small.
Correct. Right? So
And I'm going to be feeling so bad.
that, all of the above. Okay. So before I go to the third one, what are some types of security that we have in our modern world right now? Elizabeth or Jennifer?
Shelter.
Yes. Yes.
Food,
Yes.
energy, right? Resources.
Community.
Yes. Relational community.
Relationships.
Yes. Modern world. What kind of security do we always look for? Modern world.
Communication.
Yes. But go wider. People say it all the time. Financial security.
Financial security. Right. Yes. Financial security.
Occupational.
Yes.
Relational. Right? So these are just, it's a spectrum and there's so much to it, but there's 3 core desires, 3 core wants all humans are always looking to check off, right? The third one is control, also known as manipulation. And I will try to control in order for you to like me so that I feel safe, right?
How could I have not got that? I've already admitted it.
Okay, so this comes with the car. It's like a steering wheel. All humans are always unconsciously looking to have those things occur. And there's a spectrum and there's all kinds of stuff in between. But at the core, do I belong? Do you like me? Do you approve of me? Am I safe? Am I safe in this chair? Am I safe in this house? Am I safe in our relationship? Am I safe in my job? Am I safe with my money? Right? We can go on and on and on. If those things don't feel like they're solid, then I will work out. Right? I will shoot my face up. I will figure out ways to get you to approve of me. I'll get a fast car. I'll get muscles. I'll get perfect children. Whatever I got to do for you to think I'm good and safe inside the community. Is that you guys following so far? So what I do with my clients is we establish this, and then I give them this assignment, which I'm about to give everybody on your podcast. So 3 to 5 times a day, I have my clients stop, right? This is the approval, control, and security alarm. The moment the alarm goes off, you stop and you scan your body instantly. Okay, what's going on? My jaw's tight. Ooh, feeling anxious. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, wow, shoulders are up. Okay, wow. Okay, just notice. This is a neutral scan. Just we're noticing what's occurring. Then we look that way. We look back to the past and we go, what was I just giving my power to? What was I just thinking? Who was I just talking to? What was the dynamics that were occurring? We just scan the past. Because the past will, especially the recent past, will help us understand why my jaw is tight and my shoulders are up, right? Then, and this is the most important part of the exercise, now, or second most important, now I need to fact check. Because what I do with my clients often is I say, is that a fact or a philosophy? They'll speak something as if it's a fact, but it's actually a philosophy. So I'm going to fact check what my body is always looking to check off. So let's start with security, right? So I have the clients do this. Okay, am I safe? Okay, pretty sure I'm good. Nothing's coming, no car's coming to hit me. I'm safe as I can be. Okay, so that's a lie, right? My body, my whole mind was just telling me that I wasn't safe. Okay, I'm safe. Number 2, do I approve of me? Am I a good person? Like, do I get to be here? Okay, check. Pretty sure I'm worthy of living. Okay, number 3, is everything that I can control in control? Hear the word can, because we can make a list of all the things, but you can't control whether there's going to be an earthquake. You can't control whether, the stock market goes up and down. Everything that I can control and control. I know that I'm picking the kids up in 30 minutes. I know that I'm going to have that conversation with my wife. I know we're eating at such and such. Okay. Yep. Check. Okay. Here's the best part and the most important part of the exercise. Then, if those 3 are true, then all my needs are actually met. And then in that moment, I have them burst into the biggest, whatever they can find, but the biggest celebration that out of everything that's occurring on the planet right now, all my needs are met. What? my ego mind wants to lie and tell me a billion things. I just proved that it's not true. And then I have them do that about 3 to 5 times a day. And then every couple of days they check in with me. They send me a voice note. They say, oh my God, not only do I feel better, but my wife said this. My employees commented on how clean I am. It's like a ripple effect, because we have been sold a lie for so long to get the makeup, the bra, the car, the house, the success. This is, when I have this, then I'll be enough. And what I tell my students all the time is fuck the marketing machine. We have been marketed to, and especially women worse than men. We've been marketed to hate ourselves. So fuck that machine. Let's find out what's true. And what's true is, in this moment, all my needs are met. Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Buddha. Thank you, Krishna. Thank you, Allah. Let's freaking go. That.
Amazing. I love that so much. 100%.
Thank you for everything that you have shared today, Preston, with us. Like your vulnerability and your stories. Like it's been awesome. It's been very fun.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this conversation and for your time and connecting. It was just an absolute joy.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it really was. Thank you, Preston.
Love you all.